Everybody, welcome to Elevated Perspectives, our critical conversations in cloud computing. It's a new event series presented in collaboration with our AWS partners. Excuse me. We bring to you today the latest cloud computing insights, trends, and technical best practices for R&D teams in life sciences. I'm Michael Riener. I'm the President and CEO of RCH Solutions, together here with Phil Eschallier, our Chief Technology Officer. Joining us is Tom Godden. Tom is the Enterprise Strategist and CxO Advisor at AWS. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that's increasingly important for life sciences organizations of all sizes, but perhaps especially so for those emerging companies that are still maturing. And that topic, is cost optimization and management strategies. So we're going to talk about a lot of things here. When people hear the idea about cost optimization, they immediately think about cutting costs or cutting work. I want to reassure that's not what we're talking about at all. The work still needs to get done. Rather, we're going to talk about as a strategies allow you to be more efficient with your AWS resources, and specifically in the AWS cloud. Because at the end of the day, companies want to empower autonomy, but not anarchy, and want to establish clear metrics for the health of the organization. So back to Tom. Tom, I want to again thank you for joining us. Before we get started, can you take a minute to introduce yourself and we'll jump right in?
Yeah, thank you very much, Michael. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. I agree. It's a crucial topic that is top of mind for lots of people. So again, my name's Tom Godden. I'm an enterprise strategist. I've been with AWS for 4 years. I'm part of a team of 13 former CxOs, CEOs, CFOs, CIOs, CTOs from companies like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Capital One, Airbus, NASA. I was the Chief Information Officer at Foundation Medicine. Foundation Medicine is the world's largest cancer genomic diagnostics company, and I led them to go all into AWS. And we spend time in having conversations like this, sharing our experience in making the cloud migration. But as a team, we talk to almost 2,000 enterprises a year. And in doing so, we learn a lot of great best practices and what's working well, certainly on this topic, but on many others. We also learn maybe some things that don't work well. We don't name names, don't worry. But we try to pass along that information to our customers to help them be successful. So I look forward to this dialogue and learning from Phil and yourself.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Okay, so we have 3 things to talk about today. We're going to talk about cost optimization strategies, cost management strategies, and then finally, we're going to leave you with some recommendations to optimize your costs. So we'll start and talk about cost optimization challenges. I'll ask both of you the same question, starting with you, Tom, which is, what do we mean when we say the term cost optimization as it pertains to the cloud, and why is it, for lack of a better term, such a popular buzz phrase right now?
Yeah, I think, optimization, the cloud presents us a model based upon its on-demand model to be constantly evaluating how we have things deployed. Whereas before, you made a big 7-figure investment on a whole bunch of stack IT hardware. It was kind of hard to optimize it. It was what it was until it fully depreciated off the books. Now we have the opportunity to evaluate at each step of the development cycle, but also of the operation cycle. Is this on the right size instance? Could I do it in a different way? Could I come up with a different approach? And so it allows that optimization to really occur. It's crucial, for organizations to get this right. I've seen organizations that haven't been as disciplined in this space really struggle and wonder where some of the advantages of the cloud went. And so you need to have processes in place that you do daily, not something that you do on a quarterly or an annual type of basis, but you need to build this into the culture and into the fabric of your organization. And if you do that, you can get a lot of cost optimization and savings, and a lot of the benefit that the cloud provides you.
Absolutely. Phil, how about you? Do you want to comment on what we mean collectively when we say cost optimization?
Right. So thank you. So cost optimization, I am leery about the term optimization because I think if you actually optimize something, you can't do it better later. I mean, optimum is optimum, but for me, it's really a journey. It's not a destination. And to add on to what Tom said, you use the word culture. I think it starts from the top. It has to be everyone's responsibility, a shared responsibility of people spending making sure that the money is being spent wisely, that when you're engineering, you're looking at alternatives instead of old-fashioned, traditional stacks, looking at cloud-native services for the ability to do more with less, or maybe you do more with the same, but you're still making sure that as you spend money, you're getting the best bang for the buck.
Okay.
Well said.
Let's let's zero in on the industry we all know and love and work in so well, and that's life sciences. They face unique challenges when it comes to cost control and cloud computing, especially in the area of R&D. And when I say that, it's because that's typically where these companies start from. Obviously, when they merge, they have an idea and they start out in research and development. So, Phil, I'll continue with you. Can you talk about some of the unique challenges that life sciences organizations face?
Well, there's the ugly one where, we'll have customers say to us, we need to do this. And we might say, well, that might not be the best way to do it, or we should look at maybe a more efficient way. And we'll hear comments to the effect of, well, my boss says we have budget, so let's just do it. And I personally, I can't call it the customer or, call the baby ugly, so to speak. But I would love to say, let's go have your boss present to their executive committee that they don't care about how well they spend money. So, you can't do that. But I mean, that's a bothersome thing. But I think the back, to the root of it, it's hard to look at optimization and cost control from an ROI perspective, because you look at opportunities in drug discovery, and let's say an organization says we want 5 targets to move from discovery into development or preclinical for a year, but you can't say it's only the platform that helps you get there, because it has to be good science. So there's not just a single contributing factor. And another thing that happens is well, if you look at it from the longer term, how many targets did we come up with that actually made it all the way through into clinical to the market? By the time you're looking at that, it's years down the road. You look back, and your R&D environment is going to have changed a lot. It's hard to map that success with a past environment. So I like to look at things as what's the cost if we don't try this, and let's do this well, and get, again, most bang for the buck.
Okay. Tom, in your vast experience, do you have any other unique challenges you've seen in life sciences relating to cost control and cloud computing, especially in the R&D area?
Yeah, I think, one thing that I would bring up, I think many industries have embraced the concept of outsourcing. My experiences, healthcare and life sciences, have really embraced it, that they've moved a lot of their technology acumen and talent to partners, and they have lost some of their ability to, control and manage and, operate effectively in that model. And that's with good reason. In the 1990s, I think technology teams overpromised and underdelivered. The result of that was in the 2000s, an idea of, okay, IT's here to stay, but how can we do it for the least amount of money as possible? And that led us to outsourcing. But now, as IT is becoming integral to organizations and a partner in developing new therapeutics and in developing, new diagnostic capabilities, I think what we're really seeing is we're underskilled in a lot of these life sciences organizations, and therefore struggle in how, to effectively manage this, type of thing. So we got to build some of that muscle. And, candidly, that's a little bit what the conversation here today is. Let's help them build some of that muscle.
Yeah. Yeah. See it all the time with the lack of talent, or, well, the resource allocation in terms of talent.
Yeah.
We see that all the time. Hey, Tom, Phil touched on something earlier in the last question, which was ROI. Is it possible to define ROI, or is there a better way to think about the value of cost management strategies in the cloud?
Yeah, ROI is a really tough one. What I did is I used various KPIs. So let's throw out all of our acronyms here at once. But, one of the ones that I like to use, and it worked well for us at my previous company, was an understanding of how much cloud computing cost it took us to run one genomic analysis for one patient. So your volumes might be going up, so your cloud bill's going up. Well, theoretically, that's okay because I have the revenue coming in to offset that. But it didn't tell me how efficient I was. But I could understand, let's pretend if it used to cost me 100, it didn't. But if it used to cost me $100 per one to run, well, if it became 101, that's when I would go over and talk to my cloud team and go, why is it more expensive? Why is the number not going down per unit? Why aren't we getting smarter at this? How could we get this thing to go down? So, having some well-defined KPIs, and I have others, and I've worked with many companies across industry, but when you can identify that per item cost on something, that is a great way. It's not ROI, but it tells you the health and the performance of things. Now, of course, you could argue. So let's say it's $99. Well, why isn't it 80? Why isn't it 50? Well, you don't really have a notion of that. My notion was always, let's just keep it going down. Let's have a continual progression towards efficiency, and we set targets out to do that. A surrogate, because it's not always easy to have a per item cost, is an expense to revenue ratio. The problem with that is there's a lot of noise in that math equation when you get to an expense to revenue. How much money do I spend in cloud cost to my overall revenue for the company? And you can find some comparables that you can compare yourself to. Again, a lot of noise in that, but it is an effective way that at least says, are my cloud costs growing in proportion to the revenue of the company? Mm-hmm. Because I would stipulate in most cases, they should not. Now, there are periods of investment, but again, because of the cloud, I can start small and scale things up when they work. For the most part, it should be in proportion. So I love some of those KPIs as good ways, because I've never found a good ROI type of metric other than, come on, we all know it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I thought of another one that we've all experienced before, and that is going through a migration process of some sort from being on-prem to in the cloud, and the perception is, wow, the costs are going to immediately go down, when in reality you have
the bubble.
Pardon me?
Yeah, you got the bubble. You got them both for a period of time.
You know where I'm going with this. So please elaborate how to eliminate that misconception or balance the two of it.
Yeah, well, it's a challenge, because you are going to have both of those costs, for a period of time. As you try to get over that, then you, as I describe it, you try to turn that bump or that bubble into a blip. And a lot of it is these deliberate cost optimizations that you're going to want to do. But here's the other thing. You better have that forthright conversation with your CFO, so they go into it eyes wide open. So I've seen people get into trouble when they're like, yeah, exactly what you said, Michael. Everything's going to be fine the second that we begin getting things into cloud, and not have that full understanding. So I actually have a blog on this that you can check out on the AWS website that we can also maybe share as part of this, that really delves into this topic a little bit more. But yeah, being forthright on it, but a lot of the cost optimization stuff we're talking about here today.
Great. So that's actually a good segue to the next question, Phil, and I'll lead this off with you, unless you want to elaborate further on the bubble, which is moving into some technical cost management strategies. Are there any specific and practical strategies or best practices that you've seen that teams could implement to be more cost aware in their AWS cloud operations?
Yeah. So, Tom mentioned KPIs at the top level, and it's hard to get everything at a per unit level, but monitoring it at the top level, I think, is very important. But I also think delegating that down to maybe division heads underneath, or cost center owners, or maybe even individual account owners, following a budget and monitoring daily. And if there's a blip or something wrong with the spend, being very proactive and using, AWS budget is a very simple tool to monitor daily spend or alert on projected monthly spends. I mean, there's a lot of ways to actively be in there looking at this. But the key is you can't just have one person doing it. Even if the CIO is looking at it from the top level, there still has to be delegated accountabilities.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think a good point on that. It's about transparency. It sounds obvious. If people don't have the data, they don't know how to behave and act. And where I see people go wrong is every 30 days they get the bill from Amazon, then they look at it. Yikes. I mean, a lot can go wrong in 30 days. So look at it on a daily basis, have that transparency and tools. And so one of the things that I work with companies on, and I adopted a version of this, is the proverbial make the day, make the week, make the month. So I had my product owners responsible for the budget on a daily basis. So they were the ones using tools like AWS Budget and other ones to understand, what did I spend yesterday versus what I should. And so they need to make a corrective step, today, not wait for it. If you overspent yesterday, you better start pulling levers today. And then they report it into directors. The directors then look at it on the weekly basis. So they make sure that things got back in line by the end of the week. Okay. And the directors report into VPs. They're looking on a bi-weekly basis to make sure that it got back in line. So when I open up my Amazon bill every month, I guarantee you I know what it's going to be. Okay. There is zero room for surprise. Now, often they would tell me we're spending more. That's because we're launching this new product. That's because we have volumes are up, and that's great. I go to my CFO and go, our bill's going to be high, but you already know that because our test volume's up also. So, no worries. But you got to have that. So I agree completely with what Phil said. You got to have that accountability. You got to have that transparency. And again, that comes back to what I was saying. Have a mechanism and a process, a daily mechanism and a process. The weeds will grow in your garden on this one pretty quick if you're not careful.
Okay. Tom, I'd like to continue down this track just a bit. Phil mentioned some tools, and I'll get back to Phil, but I want to ask you first, are there any specific tools or resources you can recommend that can help track and manage these costs either over a period of time or on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. So, there's a variety of tools from our partners that we have. I used a tool from VMware, was very happy with it. Apptio provides a tool set. Amazon AWS has a series, the AWS Budget, the Cost Explorer tools are fantastic tools to be able to, establish those budgets and to get that transparency into that. So I would recommend any one of those tools as a capability. The one thing that I would definitely recommend you don't do is don't write your own. I know these tools cost some money. It's one of these, you got to spend a little bit of money to save some money. And the temptation is, we'll just get Power BI and pump all this data into Power BI. Don't do it. There are such better tools and instruments to help you provide that transparency and that information. For instance, the tooling that I use sent my team an email every morning at 8:00 that told them the variance, budget to actual, of their spend yesterday. Complete accountability. Don't tell me you didn't know what you spent. You didn't need to go log into a portal and I'll go do that, but I was busy or I was traveling or no, come on. Leverage and use the tooling. And there's a lot of good tooling out there, but please don't write your own.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that perspective. There is a build versus buy conundrum in a lot of places, but let's remember we're talking about biopharma here. You don't really want to be in the, cost analytics business. You want to be putting your money into drug development.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to, please your patients and your customers by having the world's greatest, data warehouse for cost analytics. Take your engineering horsepower and go put it on your mission, driven statement.
Yeah. All right, great. Thank you both. I have one more area we want to talk about, and this is a strategic part of it, making recommendations for cost optimization. So, sorry, Phil, I'll start with you. We have a lot of experience, obviously, in enterprise, but a lot more in the emerging and startup space when it comes to consulting and strategy. So at an organizational level, are there strategic recommendations you'd give to life sciences R&D teams to address the challenges of cost management in the cloud?
I think the single biggest thing is to have your cloud ops team, aware of cost and cost control goals, and have it built right into the engineering of solutions. And it's unlikely that you're going to have only one team across an organization, especially if you have, a larger group. But, maybe chemistry or cheminformatics might have an ops team, and, your bioinformatics might have another ops team that all roll up as a sub team of this main team. But if you start at the beginning with cost is a culture, cost is something that is right from engineering, and always looking at opportunities to better yourself, I think you're on a good path. The other part of that is that when you're doing public cloud, infrastructure as code is essential. And if you have opportunities for cost control, you're not re-engineering something, you're just tweaking your templates and relaunching a known service. So you're not reinventing the wheel if you have a new opportunity for cost control.
Okay. Tom, is there anything you can share at an organizational level? Help
Yeah,
the
so
R&D teams?
yeah, I'll give you a couple things. I
Okay.
haven't seen teams generally succeed when they have a team that's responsible for cost. We've talked about it before. Phil just mentioned it. It's got to be the responsibility and part of the culture of every single team. You can have a team that helps facilitate everything, making sure everyone understands the bill and the spend and all. Yeah, okay, great. Make sure the trains run on time. But it needs to be each individual person's, responsibility who has the ability to provision. I got into situations where my engineering team said, well, we built this. I didn't know how much it cost to run. The infrastructure team said, well, I had to throw a whole bunch of iron at it in order to get it to run because the engineers didn't build it the right way. Both of them felt like they weren't responsible for the cost. And I'm like, no, it is part of your engineering acumen as you're building it to have a consideration for cost. And so we need to push that accountability out there. And it doesn't work with a centralized team that runs around and tells people what they, need to do. It needs to be part of the team. The teams that come to me and go, we want to try out Amazon Aurora. Can we get some budget to do that? And I used to go, I'm broke. I gave you guys all the money, right? You think that I'm sitting on a big pile of money. I'm like, you guys need to go find slack in the rope. Why are all the dev instances on 24 hours a day? Why is test running every single day? Why do you have 37 EBS snapshots? Surely 36 of them would do. Okay, seriously, 3 of them would do. Okay. But, that needs to be part of their culture and their discipline to be able to say, how can we take action to optimize those types of things?
Great. Phil, I'll go to you last. Are there any best practices you have for life science organizations to create that fast and agile environment?
Well, I think back to the cloud ops team, I don't want to be repetitive, but I would like to suggest maybe the need to look at things a little bit more holistically, because you want to optimize cloud costs, but understanding that part of your ownership costs are how many people go into this, so the size of the team. And if you spend a little bit more in the cloud to save money on the human side, you can't just look at things just as cloud only. And the other thing I really want to push is that teams need to talk to each other. And one of the things that bothers me, I see it all the time in essentially all of our customers. I'll give you an example. We're going to buy a new instrument, and this instrument is going to generate, I don't know, a terabyte of data a day. And it goes through procurement and it arrives, and then they go, oh, by the way, we need to store this data somewhere. And that wasn't budgeted in, and it isn't part of anyone's cost. So I keep saying, well, in this example, tell procurement you can't buy an instrument unless you have money for storage, and just put it all together. Don't buy something and say we can't use it unless we spend more money. Look at the big picture.
Yeah, part of that comes down to training people, because I think before they didn't worry about storage as much because they felt like there was always idle storage sitting around in the sunk asset of their on-premise environment, so they could find a way to solve it. Where now there's real immediate consequences, right? There's real cost on demand. So part of it is training your people, investing in the time to train them on the model, the paradigm of cloud, of the cost containment levers. And we even did some tabletop exercises with people, some of the more junior people who are going to have some of this budget responsibility of how's this whole cloud thing work? What does it mean to provision this? What does it mean to have this type of instance? What does it mean? How do you use a cost calculator to estimate those costs, as Phil just mentioned, to be able to do this? So let's not take it for granted that they can all just adapt into it. It's a new world. And so, investing in that is crucial.
Yeah, it's a great point. We find ourselves doing that all the time. You make assumptions about people. They're intelligent people. They're experienced people. They have knowledge about what the cloud can and can't offer. And they have preconceived notions based on prior experiences. But a lot of times it requires some subtle adjustment and education.
Yep.
So I'll just summarize things up. At the end of the day, the whole idea is to empower people, empower them, to give them autonomy, but not total anarchy. And like you said, to have a conversation with them to establish clear metrics. There may or may not be an ROI. It may be something as simple as let's establish clear KPIs, communicate constantly, report back on them, and then we'll put ourselves in a much better situation that we grow. We can build a proper AWS environment for scale and performance. So these costs don't become an inhibitor, but they actually help us drive business. So I want to thank both of you. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Phil, for today, for contributing. This was terrific. I'll remind everybody listening that we have this episode and upcoming ones. You can learn more about our website, rchsolutions.com/elevated perspectives. And as always, to help us, we encourage you to provide us with feedback as well. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.